Testing. This is Cheryl testing. Hey, Miranda, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Monday morning,
Up bright and early.
Have you had a good week of football?
Yeah, not bad. We just settling into Adelaide a bit and went down, watched the local NPL final here, which was great.
Yeah.
Came home, watched the Matildas match, so that was a good day of football. And then we officially start training today, so that should be good.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that's exciting. And just personally, are your family in WA and are you locked down of WA or because Adelaide and like it's okay between South Australia and WA that you can get through? Because I'm in Victoria and where no one wants us.
Yeah, no, it's fine at the moment to get from WA to South Australia and back. Like my partner came over with me and we stayed for the week and then he's gone back. So that's all
Yeah.
fine at the moment.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. All right. I'll talk you through what we tend to do. So we're pre-recording this segment. Normally we would go live on Facebook at sort of 5:30 or something this evening. But what I'll do is I'll splice this in to the podcast, which we edit later, where we do capture the video and we might use that for promos, but we won't use it more generally, I think. And generally we just do all the way through. Like we don't edit too much, so what we record right now is what you get. And partly that's because my editing skills aren't amazeballs, but yeah. I don't know if there's any other questions. I mean, I was asking to see if we could get anyone else to join the chat as well, but I've got a couple of questions from the people instead of them joining us. So if there's anything that you don't want to answer, and there's nothing controversial, I'm not asking about any football culture or anything like that. But if there's anything that you don't feel comfortable with, just say, no, not keen on that. And I will edit that bit. Okay. Yeah. Apart from that, all good. You happy? Any questions from you?
No, all good.
Oh, all right. Well, we're already recording, but I'll cut out all the front load bit and then I'll just do a bit of an introduction. So I'll just pause and then it makes editing easier. 1 second. G'day everyone, Cheryl Downs here. I am so glad to be able to interview Miranda Templeman, who has made her way from WA to New South Wales and back to Adelaide and probably at some point back to WA. But Miranda has signed a contract with the Adelaide Reds and has also been playing in New South Wales with the New South Wales Institute Football and is also part of the Future Matildas program. So please, this is an exciting moment. Miranda, thank you very much for joining us. Great to have you on board. How's it going for you?
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, really good. Settling into Adelaide quite well. It's very similar to Perth. In respects, it's quite easy to get around everywhere. And, the club's been great so far. We start training tonight, but even before we stepped on the pitch, they've been super welcoming of me. And the squad's been great so far.
And it does look like a good squad as well. I think you've got a few signings still to go, but at the moment for yourself in the goalkeeper, but you've also got Annalie Grove there as well. Have you guys spent a bit of time together before? And is it it's competition, right? Because there's one starting goalkeeper position and you want that space. She wants that space. How good is the camaraderie working together with her?
Yeah, it's great. Like I've worked with Annie throughout most of the year in Sydney with the Future Matildas program. And she was kind of a bit older than me. So she came in and Leah had her almost as a little bit of a mentor for me, which was great. As you're saying, like it is at the end of the day, a competition for spots. But I think we'll have that good dynamic where it's during the week, we're both pushing each other to try and get that number one spot. And at the end of the day, whoever plays on the weekend, the other person's going to be there supporting them. So I think that's a great dynamic to have within the squad.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more around the move to New South Wales for the Future Matildas program and to play for Football New South Wales Institute? How did that come about? What are you learning from that? And what's the program like? Is it something that after the A-League women, I was about to say the W League, but let's just say after the dub season has finished, is that something that you head back that way as well?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the plan. And I was lucky enough to stay with Bradley Henry's family while I was over there in a host family. and they're absolutely amazing, and basically said I've got a home in Sydney whenever I need. So that's an amazing feeling to always be welcome there and have somewhere to stay. But in terms of the football side, yeah, Future Matildas kind of came about. I was talking to Leah Blaney a bit in 2019, but kind of said, look, I want to finish my schooling in WA because I was going into year 12 then. And she said, yep, that's right, we'll come back to it next year. And so I was kind of always planning to go over there. I applied for university in Sydney, so I'm still studying at a Sydney university. So that all worked out really well. And just the quality of football in the New South Wales NPL is a massive step up. So being able to test yourself against, you know, A-League women's players every week is just something great for my development, especially.
Now, I don't want to sound like I'm certainly not being ageist, but you are really young. And some of the challenges, I mean, we saw just recently Alana Kennedy had been away from home for quite a while, hadn't been able to see her family. So it's not an ageist comment to say, how are you actually doing without the support directly of your family right with you? And has that been one of the biggest challenges of moving interstate at such a young age, or just moving interstate? I'm not your age. Moving interstate would probably kill me and my family. So
yeah, no, it's not very bad. I think it was definitely something that's intimidating when you look at it. And there are a lot of nerves there. Going over to Sydney, I think I was probably more nervous than I was coming to Adelaide. But as I was saying, the Henry family just made it such an easy move for me. And, you know, I've got little sister necklaces from all the girls. So I'm like, yeah, they're so supportive of me and everything I do. So they made that super, super easy, as did the whole Future Matildas program. I mean, Leah's checking up on me, how I'm doing all the time. So off the field, like, well-being is a massive emphasis for that program as well. And I think I went home to Perth for a little bit in between after the NPL season finished, and then came here. So I think just the fact that I've done it once, like I can do it again, and having that transition where I'm in a host family, now I'm staying in a townhouse with another player, and it's kind of a slow transition out of home, which I think has made it a lot easier.
Yeah. And does that make it easy when you think about football? And it's not something that, I mean, I work remotely, but if you go off and sign a contract, not only playing for Football New South Wales or the New South Wales Institute or Adelaide United, but I don't know if it's on your radar to actually try and play internationally at some point. But are these are the skills that you're sort of developing for that future as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think going overseas is definitely something on my bucket list, and a goal that I definitely want to achieve. And yeah, I think everything that I do is just adding tools to the toolbox of how I'm going to cope with that, and just developing myself off the field as well as on it.
Now, I want to give a shout out to the World Football Program as well, which I believe that you've spent some time on that, talking with Penny Tanner, and I've been a guest on that program giving an update as well. Tell us about how that came to your world, and no doubt it would have been difficult to leave them in WA, but you can still dial in and give them updates.
Yeah, definitely. I think in 2019, after the Pacific tour I did with the Junior Matildas, Penny called me up and said, oh, do you want to come on for an interview? And so I did that and really enjoyed it. And then a few weeks later, they posted on their Facebook that they were looking for someone to train up and kind of learn how to use all the panels and do the radio stuff. And that really intrigued me. So I gave it a go. And by the end of it, I knew how to use all the buttons and phone in all the people. So yeah, I massively enjoyed that side of it, and it gave me a different perspective on football as well, because you're not just looking at the on the field stuff, you're looking at, you know, all the different aspects of football. You've got walking football, blind football. We had someone from goalball on the other week, and all the behind the stuff, club presidents, how clubs actually run, and that was really interesting to me. So yeah, it was definitely hard to leave them, but I will stay involved, definitely.
It's definitely a big part of football these days that we used to see just a footballer on the pitch and say they've had a good game or a bad game, and that's how we defined them as players. But now it's actually great to see that there's so many outlets who, or even the players themselves, are pushing forward. I'm not just a player, I am just, you know, I do more than drink coffee. I do more than go out and eat and play football and those kind of things. And that's something that it looks like you're ticking that box really quite early, which is a brilliant thing. Can you tell us a little bit about the AFC Social Responsibility Program, how you got involved, what they're doing, and what the longer term looks like for you in there?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it was again like kind of late 2019 after all the Junior Matildas trips had died down, and Ray Dower said, "Oh, we've got this opportunity, and I think you'd be really good for it." Where they select one or two youth players from both the boys and the girls junior national teams in all of the Asian Federation, and you get together, and it's basically a training program for young players about social responsibility and like the impacts we can have with our, developing presence. We're all aimed to be at that professional level, but what are the responsibilities that come with that, and how can we use that platform to make a difference? And so I did that training program, and then at the end of it was trying to develop a project. They worked with your member federation about a project that you want to instill yourself. And I think mine was about gender neutral change rooms. So having like change rooms where both a men's team and a women's team can walk in and feel comfortable. And, it's not the outdated men's change room where it's, brick and there's open showers and a urinal or something like that. And you just don't really feel like you're supposed to be there or you're welcome there. So Football Australia already had a team going with that. So I was working with them for a while, trying to, implement that across the country.
Okay, so when we see that across the country, we'll definitely see your name on there as well. That's a great start, right? It's such a great opportunity that you've been presented with. Talking about Ray Dower, she's a legend. We've had her on the podcast before. We love Ray, so hopefully the experiences that you've had with her have been. I mean, it just seems like it would be fun hanging out with Ray.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, like the whole Junior Matildas trip was amazing, and the Pacific trip especially, because it was a friendly tour where it was actually funded by the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So it was about building the relationships between the country. It wasn't so much about the football side. And I think that's where Ray comes to life, especially like, yes, she's an amazing coach, but she's such an amazing mentor off the field and just big on the holistic picture, and so much fun. It was almost like a holiday where I got to play football. Like, it's absolute dream come true.
That sounds perfect. Now, talking about the full person as well, that's not all that you do. You're also studying sports science and coaching. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so I'm studying sport and exercise science at University of Technology, Sydney. So they've been super good with their elite athlete program, kind of helping me manage from wherever I am. And COVID's almost been a little bit of a blessing for me because everything is online. So it's very easy to take wherever I am. So I've done it from Perth, doing it from Adelaide currently. And that's been really great, helping me get extensions or flexibility where I need it, but really enjoying the program as of. And coaching, I did a bit of coaching in Perth, like goalkeeper coaching with Dave Wally, but then looking over when I was in Sydney, they were offering, Future Matildas did our mini roos course with us. So that was another part of the program that they offered. And then they looked for jobs there, the mini roos program with Football Australia. So myself and Bradley Henry signed up to do that, and then lockdown hit before he could get started. But they've just transferred me over to the Adelaide branch. So I had my first mini roos session the other week, which was hectic, but absolutely so much fun.
Yeah, and that's great, I think, as well, particularly in goalkeeping. I don't know the experiences as deeply as you do, but we tend to have a low number of women coaching football in a general sense. But then when I personally look at goalkeeping coaches who are women, I don't think I could name too many. I think, certainly Bubs, but I think Bubs is more of a coach more generally rather than specifically targeting goalkeeping coaching. So if you can stay in that, would be thrilled to see you there. Are there any other women coaches that you're aware of in Australia or around the world?
Well, I mean, Tracy Wheeler, who's a former Matildas
of course,
goalkeeper.
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, she's done a bit of work with some of the NPL clubs back in Perth. But there's not a whole massive amount, as you were saying. So it's definitely an area I'm keen to stay involved in.
Yeah, definitely. Would love to see you stay in there. Let's talk about your game a little bit. So we've talked about the player off the field, but if we talk about your game, when I've looked at the highlights and I looked at a great reel that was made by Gold Leaf Creative, and it just demonstrates how much of a communicator you are on the field. And I'm not saying that's the only thing that you do, but when I look at someone like Lydia Williams, we see that communication coming out really strongly, and that's something that sort of looks like it's similar for you. Would you say that's a massive part of your game? And have you been influenced by people like Lydia Williams or, I don't know, other goalkeepers around the world?
Yeah, definitely. I think it is something that's now like a massive part of my game, but it definitely wasn't something that came naturally to me. I remember coming into my NTC team, I had Jessine Bonzas as my coach, and I was 14, kind of coming up into the under 18s group, and I was so nervous, and I actually wouldn't say a word the entire game. I would not talk whatsoever, and she basically just said, look, you need to start talking because the defenders have no idea what's going on. And she did say you've got to look at, you know, the likes of Lydia Williams and how they communicate to the defence. And it was something I had to work super hard on. That's one of the things that I think I'd turned into one of my strengths, but it took a long way to get there.
Yeah, no, I think from what I can see, I think you're doing an amazing job in there. And it's great that they're actually coaching you in those areas too, because, you know, without some really clear communication from the back, I think it must be harder for everyone who, if I was playing football, I'd probably only be looking at the ball. I wouldn't be listening as much. And that's why I'm not a Matilda. But anyway, one of the 21 reasons or something or other. So talking about the rest of your game, what do you see are the key areas where you're really, probably for your age right now, you're doing really well versus the things that are probably you're working on them a little bit more? Where would you put yourself in terms of maybe leadership, your aerial skills, your distribution? Like, are they all sort of, you're working on all of them concurrently, or is there one thing that you're already, you know, pretty good at and focusing on some other areas?
Yeah, definitely. I think I always have my strengths and my weaknesses, but looking to improve in, you know, everywhere, every training session you get better. But I think one of my strengths would probably be my one-on-ones, and it's just a little bit of crazy that every goalkeeper has in them, that I'm just, willing to throw my body at the ball and not really care too much about my personal safety. But and then one of the things that I've been working on, especially through the Future Matildas season, is distribution and strength as well. So that's the S&C program there. It's been great, and Adelaide have got that going. So and they kind of go hand in hand, just like, you know, that long distribution, you can get your technique right, but if you don't have the strength to execute it, then there's no point. So working in those kind of hand in hand going into this season.
Okay, cool. Talk about your influences and your influences. Like, are there people out there? I mean, were you a massive Nadine Angara fan, or dare I say, a Hope Solo kind of fan, or have your influences been more localized in terms of goalkeepers and women goalkeepers in particular, hopefully?
Yeah, I mean, when I was very young, I think my massive idol was Iker Casillas, so not a women's goalkeeper, but I just love, one of his famous quotes was, I want to be remembered as a good person, not as a great goalkeeper. And so I like that kind of, he's one of the world's best goalkeepers of all time, but he also has that, you know, I'm a human side to him. So I've had his poster up on my wall since I was about 12. But in terms of local influences, I think Lydia Williams has been massive for me. I think the Perth versus Melbourne City grand final that was held in Perth back when Sam Kerr was leading the line. I remember getting a photo and an autograph from her and just being absolutely starstruck. But yeah, the way she's kind of held that consistent spot in the national team is just an awe to me. Like, that's what everyone's aiming to achieve, is to hold that spot so consistently. She's definitely been a massive role model for me.
And hopefully you'll be up there and in amongst it pretty soon. I mean, it's really quite competitive when you look at goalkeepers for the international squads that we see, but hopefully we'll see you there soon. Just a couple of questions more broadly. So it's, you know, not just about individuals playing football. What about your team? Like, what sort of thoughts and ideas do you have about the different teams that you've played with? Like, what gels, what's harder, like, you know, any of those kind of questions?
Yeah, I've been super lucky to be a part of like a massive amount of great teams with great cultures. I think growing up, I played a lot of boys football because there wasn't a lot of women's teams at a younger age. So I played boys NPL up until I was 16. and was always, the only girl on the team, but I think was embraced just the same, and, got along well with everyone, and all the parents as well were absolutely so supportive of me. And then in 2019, the Junior Matildas group was probably one of the most well tight-knit groups I've ever been a part of. And it says something that I'm living with Georgia Beaumont now, who's just signed for Adelaide, and we kind of picked up, we haven't seen each other since that trip, but picked up exactly where we left off. And I think that's probably what led us to do so well in that tournament. Was I think we got messages before our first game against Japan saying, oh, you guys are going to get smashed, like no one's ever beaten Japan, like on a junior national team level, when we go out there and kept a clean sheet and drew 0-0, and it was just, you could feel it on the pitch. And I think that was the most fire I've ever felt in a game, was that, because everyone just had that desire to go out there and work for each other and work for Ray, because, she had so much faith in us, and actually pulled us aside before the game, and because she heard a few little whispers going around about, people were intimidated by the force that Japan had. And she basically said, well, if you don't think we can do it, then why the hell am I here? So we had that fire to go and do it for her almost, and pay her back for everything that she's done for us.
All right, very good. I've got plenty more questions for you. We'll keep going until you say, no, I'm done. I've got nothing else to say. Best goalkeeper in the world right now, women's goalkeeper.
Women's goalkeeper. Oh, that's hard. I think Lydia, I would say Lydia a few years ago, but this year I'd say Tegan Micah has been doing absolutely amazing. And I think she, given a few more opportunities, she's only 24, but I think coming into that prime age of when you've got that balance of had that time to develop technically, but also still young enough to, be in your prime physically. So she's coming up to that peak age where I think she's going to be a real powerhouse in the world.
Oh, very good. All right. Your thoughts on the game on Saturday night between Australia and Brazil?
Yeah, brilliant. I think the emotion was the best thing ever. And also seeing my old roommate, Bradley Henry, making her debut, I think I nearly cried. Such a great feeling, very surreal. Super, super proud of her. So, that was an amazing game.
One of the things which is in the news right now is a discussion from FIFA's technical advisory group about a World Cup every 2 years. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. I think the more opportunities we get to play on a world level, the better, and just gives every 4 years is a long cycle, and especially for players like Lydia Williams or players that are coming to the end of their career, I think they would look at this and be like, hell yeah, I can hang on for another 2 years, rather than looking at that 4-year gap and being like, oh, can I make it to that next world event? But and I just think the more games we can get on that world's level, the faster we'll improve as a team. And you see with Tony coming in and having that project kind of building up, introducing some young players into the squad, but keeping that core the same. I think, the more games we can get, the better that team's going to get.
Yeah, good position. I feel that there's a lot of people saying, no, we only want it every 4 years, but great to hear the perspective of why every 2 years is a good thing. All right, last question. On our podcast, we always talk about our Queens of the Week. I don't know if you've heard about it, but Queens of the Week are basically, you want to give a shout out to this person because you thought that they represented the best thing of the week. Do you have a Queen of the Week in the football realm, whether or not it's Ray Dow because she rang you up and said, "G'day, mate, how are you?" or someone else?
Oh, look, I'd have to say Bradley, just insanely proud of her making her debut this week. And while I was staying with her, she actually fractured her leg. So she's just come off the back of a long injury stint during lockdown, which is never easy. And I had the same experience coming back to COVID football after my knee. And it's just like, oh, well, I've done all this work to get back and nothing's there. And you feel like you've got no reward. So super, super happy for her to get that reward at the end of the day, because she deserves it.
Yeah, well, it's been wonderful chatting to you, and you deserve lots of great things coming your way in football. We also hope that you'll join us on the podcast again, depending on how your schedule allows it. But maybe we can get you on the podcast and you can interview Briley, and we'll just sit back and just watch the two of you have a great chat. But Miranda, it's been great fun chatting with you. I've really enjoyed it, and I think the people listening to the podcast will love hearing more about you and your journey. And we wish you all the very best. Hats off to Adelaide. They've made a great signing in having you there. And I really think it's a great environment based on what we've seen the last couple of seasons. They've really focused on the development of, their local youth, but also just youth in general. So it sounds like a great spot to be. So thank you again.
No worries. Definitely a team on the rise. So be good to see us this season. I think we'll do well.
Very good. All right. I'll just stop the